Hey y'all, Walker Doubleday here. We're here today at Doubleday Guitars in Austin, Texas, and we're gonna try and build a guitar from scratch and see if we can't beat the PLEK machine on it. Come on inside, let's get it started. So for this build, we're gonna do one of our Broadwing models, which is our T-style build. I'm thinking we'll do a one-piece Paulownia body, go with a nice figured roasted maple neck blank, and top it off with a Madagascar rosewood fretboard. We build all our guitars here completely from scratch, from raw lumber, entirely handmade with no CNC machines, and do everything the best we can. So for this build, along with every other build we do here at Doubleday Guitars, we're gonna be using this unmatched string tension simulating neck jig, which, full disclosure, we understand this is not the only way to build a guitar neck. This is just what we have found to be the best for our building process. We get very consistent results, and the necks come out exactly how we want them every single time. So, what we are able to do with this is build the neck on this fixture, which allows us to engage the truss rod with the amount of tension we want to build in the amount of relief that we need for the neck, level the fretboard, and then level the frets afterwards to the exact same shape that we want the neck to be in. So when it's strung up in playing position, it'll play as good as it possibly can be. And we'll test that theory by taking this guitar over to our good friend Danny Shoemaker at Straight Frets here in Austin, Texas, and put on his PLEK machine and get a scan just to see how good we can do. Now, with a little bit of video editing magic, we will turn this neck blank into a neck ready to go on this fixture and show you how we do that process. All right, y'all, so we're back at the shop here, and it's been a couple days. We've got this neck looking a little bit more like a guitar neck now. So we've gone ahead and done the radius, a little rough carve on the back for the profile, and we've roughed in about 5/1000ths of relief into the neck, which is where we like it to sit. We use vintage style one-way truss rods with all our guitar necks. And we find that the way that a one-way rod compresses the wood and builds tension into the neck just is a little bit more effective for a resonant guitar than your common two-way truss rod. So if you come look over here, we use this 5-dial relief gauge to show we've got about 5/1000ths of relief built in here in the middle gauge. The other 4 kind of show the curve that we've built into the guitar. And this is very accurate. Very nice, accurate tool for us. We prefer that over your standard straight edge. So you put this on here, you can see a little bit of light coming through underneath in the middle, but how much? We take this 5-dial relief gauge over here to this granite stone, which is guaranteed to be flat within 3/10,000ths of an inch. We can zero out each dial and know that anything that we put this on from here forward will be completely flat reading if it says 0 across the board. So now we've got the neck fully strung up to pitch under full string tension and bolted onto this surrogate body, which has a hole drilled right through the middle of it, so we can use this lag bolt to bolt this whole thing to the fixture. It's really easy to take on and off of here and holds it real steady in place while we're manipulating the neck the way we want to do and have full control over everything. So if you look now, this center dial on the relief gauge is showing we have about 10/1000ths of relief now just from the string tension pulling it in. So an interesting thing about this fixture is that what we're gonna do is flip it down into playing position. So all the work that we're manipulating takes the weight of the neck and all these clamps and everything out of the equation. So if you can see now, it's showing about 15/1000ths of relief just from moving it into a different position. So what we're gonna do is use the truss rod, which has been totally disengaged until now, to bring the neck, the center dial of the relief gauge back up to 0. Which shows us across the length of the neck, it is flat as can be. So the other dials are still showing some discrepancies from 0, which shows us that there's highs and low spots which the strings have pulled into the neck based on the pressure the string is exerting on there. So we've also got these lower dials showing on the back of the neck. Those are at 0 as well, to show how every aspect of this neck is manipulated. So what we're gonna do next is take the strings off of the neck and use these 2 tools, part of this fixture, to force the neck back into the same shape it currently is. So when we do any fretwork, fretboard leveling on this neck, it'll be exactly as it will be in under string tension in playing position. So it'll play the best it possibly can, and hopefully we can try to beat the PLEK machine with it. So I'm gonna pop these strings off, and then I'll show y'all exactly how I manipulate the neck to get back to this shape. Okay, so now we've got the strings taken off of the neck, and as you can see, all of the dials are way off of 0 now. It's totally changed the shape of the neck. We've got about 10/1000ths of backbone now here on this center gauge of the relief gauge, and these down here way off. So what I'm gonna use is this screw here with a little padded top to it to push the whole headstock up. And as we can see, this dial comes up we'll push this straight back up to 0, which is exactly where we had it under string tension. But the issue is now, if we look down at these two gauges down here, each mark on this gauge is 1/1000th of an inch. These ones are 0.5 each. This is 4/1000 of relief here and 2/1000 of relief on this one. So what happened? Why just pushing the headstock back up are we no longer even to where we were with the strings on? It's because the strings going over the nut actually force a downward pressure, torquing the whole headstock. So what we're able to do with this fixture is put this strap over where the nut goes. And using this threaded rod here, we could pull the headstock down from the nut area. And we have to kind of finesse between both of these screws here to get all the dials back to 0. It looks like we are pretty much there. It's not a lot of force on the nut, but it's enough to show that it is affecting it. Now we have the 3 most important dials back at 0, the center of the relief gauge and the 2 undersides, showing all the forces affecting the neck from the string pressure are now put back into the neck. So any work we do on the fretboard or frets in this position will be consistent. So now we have these little orange rods which we can push up into the bottom of the neck to support it. And everything will be locked into place. So now we can bring it back up into working position and everything is exactly where we want it. So it'll still be in playing position the best it can be. So now we're gonna level the fretboard. I'm gonna do some cross hatches with pencil on the fretboard and sand it till everything goes away. Go up through the grits. I'll show you some of how I dress my fret slots to prepare for fretting. And let's make this thing flat. So I'm not gonna make y'all watch the whole sanding process because that would be really boring, but I did just wanna say I'll be using this 18-inch sanding beam from Philadelphia Luthier Supplies. This is a 12-inch radius we'll be putting onto this board. We'll be using Jescar 43080 stainless steel fret wire, classic vintage size. I'm gonna be starting with 120 grit and we're gonna go up to about 2000 grit. We'll cut in a couple times throughout the process so I can show you how we do our prep for the fret slots to get ready for fretting, as well as how I put the ramp into the end of the board so that we get maximal playing ability throughout the entire length of the fretboard. We'll see you in a bit. All right, so now we've got the fretboard leveled all the way flat across the whole board, and we're gonna put some ramp into the end of the board because the truss rod is not effective. It doesn't do anything to the neck up to the body joint. So we're gonna knock down just the end of the fretboard a little bit to give some extra room for the rotation of the strings at that point, so you get buzz-free playing all the way up. Got packing tape on here and just a little bit of tape built up on the 5th fret to create just a little slight ramp at the end of the board. Takes longer than that. Okay, so now we've got the fretboard sanded up through 220 grit. We're going to do just a little fret prep to make sure the frets can go as cleanly as possible. The whole principle with doing this whole thing is to make the fretboard exactly the shape that we want it and then put the frets in so that those go in evenly across. And when we do our fret dress across the top of the frets, we take off the least amount of material as possible to leave that crown nice and high and as much life left in the frets as it can be. And it just comes out perfect. So we'll use this fret slaw here, which has guides on either side for about 55 thousandths depth, and just run it through and make sure that all the fret slots are just deep enough to we're not going to bottom out the fret tang as we're pushing them in. And once we're sure with all the fret slots that we're getting all the way through with the saw, we'll come in with a triangle file. And this is really just important because for your repairman in the future, if they ever have to do a refret on this neck, just beveling the edges of the fret slots at the very top will make it a lot easier to pull out the tang with the barbs and the frets without pulling out any more of the fret material, the board material, so you can have a nice clean refret. So just a little kiss, just run a triangle file right through the slot. And just a real small bevel. Just helps your repairman down the road. So we'll go through all the frets just like that, and then we'll continue through the grits, go up to 2000, and then we'll get ready to push in some frets. So this is always interesting. When you take it off of the fixture, we put it down here on the bench without string tension, nothing affecting the neck. We've got about 7 thousandths of back bow, which is accounting for the string tension pulling up in the fixture. So let's loosen the truss rod here. Go all the way off to release all the tension on the truss rod. We've got about 6.5, 7 thousandths of relief in the middle of the neck. which is what we want with a one-way truss rod. We need the truss rod to be engaged when it is in playing position under string tension. Let's bring it back up to 0 in the middle gauge. And theoretically, this would mean a perfectly flat neck here. But if we take a look at these two dials over here, you can see we have almost 2 thousandths of back bow here at about the 10th fret. And close to 2 as well on the 14th. We're pretty close to 0 between the 1st and the 5th fret here. But that just comes to show that if you try to level the board perfectly flat without the simulated string tension, once you put the tension into it, those bumps will come into the neck. So these have accounted for those with the string tension. So once it's strung back up in playing position, it'll be perfectly flat and right where we want it. So we've got the board all prepped. We're ready to push the frets in. We're just going to use this standard StewMac fret press. We've got a 12-inch column here, 12-inch fretboard. I don't like to hammer anything with the frets because I feel like it distorts the shape of the fret. It's never going to get back to where it is supposed to be. So we've got our fret wire cut here already. This is just barely slightly over radiused from a 12-inch fret radius. So we've got a little bit of super glue here. We'll just carefully put just a little dab of super glue in each fret slot. Try not to make a mess because we don't want to have to go back and clean up this beautiful fretboard we just sanded. Just a little bit of glue. And I'll just use my fingers to push it in just ever so slightly so it stays in place. It's pretty crucial when pushing in your frets to make sure you use the same amount of pressure for each fret going down the board. You can over push them and compress the wood underneath the fret, especially with rosewood. You want to make sure you push down just hard enough to seat it properly without overdoing it. And we'll go through and do the rest of these frets. All right, so we've got all the frets pressed in. We just did a rough bevel on the ends of all the frets, and the next steps will be to do final sanding on the body, the rough shape of the profile on the back of the neck, get that all dialed in, and then we'll take these two into the spray booth and do a real thin nitrocellulose satin finish, and we'll meet back up when it's ready to do the final fret dress. If you want to see any more of this whole build process, we do have some other videos showing the entire build process from start to finish. I'll link those down below in the description, and check that out. And when we meet back up, we'll be ready to dial this in and take it over to Danny and see how we did.